How do I, my brother, my mother, my father, they're falling down the, they're being more reactionary, this, that, the other. Well, especially with parents who have direct power over you, if you're young and you live with them, you have to be really careful when engaging with them on any kind of disagreement, because again, your safety is priority number one. But if you feel you can engage with them, right, just don't act like the stereotype that they want to make you. Basically, imagine a conservative a conservative caricature of an SJW, and be the opposite of that. The reason this works is because the conservative caricature of an SJW is maximized to make people as unlikely as possible to carefully consider their arguments. One good example of this would be Big Red. You know, that lady who was at the conference who had the red hair? Now, reactionaries love Big Red because she's a shouty lady and she's got red hair. But if you listen to anything that she said in like the video of her arguing with the men's rights guys around her, I don't think she said much at all unreasonable. Like, she was fine. Like, she was fine. It wasn't even that she was right. It was like she was just yelling. Like, multiple people were yelling there, you know? It was pretty normal. The way she looked, though, gave people an image. I bet you a lot of people who have used the image of her have never actually seen the video or heard her words. But there's a stereotype that they like to imagine. And the stereotype of an SJW that these people hold dear to their hearts, that maximizes the chance that whatever they say is ignored, is you have to be preachy, you have to be unhappy, you have to be unintelligent, and you have to be overly earnest. These are the stereotypes of an SJW, right? It's not enough that they be preachy on their own. Many people are preachy. The right wing likes people who preach if they agree with the things they preach on. Overly earnest, they cannot let it go. They persist. They follow you from scene to scene. They can't let it go. They can't let you live. They're over involved. They have nothing going on in their lives except for bothering you about this, right? Unhappy. This is critical. Do you ever see right-wingers gloat over the perception of SJWs being happy? Is that a stereotype you're familiar with? That you might see, in an image or a video? Do they ever look like they're happy? No! They look miserable, they're screeching, and this is necessary because it plays into the idea that being an SJW is a mutually destructive bargain. It's not that the SJW has fun at the expense of the poor white men or whatever. It is that in a vicious and animalistic sense, the SJW tears down everyone around them. The trans person, in the eye of a conservative, can never be made happy by their transition. Even though conservatives argue that trans people are just degenerates, that they're innately morally wrong, they must also argue that transitioning brings suffering to those who do it. That there are medical complications, or the delusions, or nothing gets fixed, or da-di-da-di-da. Why are these arguments necessary when the right makes fundamentalist arguments against trans people? If you're calling them degenerates, you don't need to then argue that they're also unhappy to deter people from being trans. The fact that it's degenerate should be enough for them, but no. It is because, as humans with the capacity for empathy, we are more positively inclined towards people who seem to be having a good time. We consider happiness as a marker of moral virtue. We see it as an indicator of one's well-being. This is why the SJW can never be happy. It's why people would always cite that Jordan Peterson thing that he hypocritically said, that you must clean your own room before you can change the world. The idea that these people can't run their own lives, much less other people's. They're miserable. They're dragging those around them down. They're causing harm to themselves and others. In the case of feminist SJWs, they're moving away from what it means to be a woman. Women are supposed to be like this, so if they're not, it is what is causing them unhappiness. This is why the right circle jerks over the belief that feminists secretly all crave conservative chud dick, which is statistically and mathematically not the case, but it's a fantasy they indulge in because they want their opponents to be miserable. We do this too. We are all aware of the fact that online Nazis are miserable people who have horrible lives, And we revel in it because to a large extent they cause it for themselves. We also engage in this behavior, and understanding that the misery and the unhappiness and the poor life discipline of our political opposition makes them less trustworthy, less enviable, and more of a political mockery. So be happy. Don't give them that stereotype. Be pleasant. Even if you're not outwardly happy, even if you're having a bad time, and that's fine, we're all humans, you have to exercise emotional control. Emotional control is vital to any good rhetoric. You need to project the image of a level person who is capable of seeing the humor, the good, in things you disagree with. This is one of the things that I think has historically made me pretty effective at talking to people on the right. I can laugh at problematic jokes. I make problematic jokes. And in so doing, I indicate that I'm not joyless. I don't represent some political affront to the concept of humor. I find lots of stuff funny. Even if I politically disagree with the people who make those jokes, or sometimes even the content of those jokes. I think that people on the left, on both a political and interpersonal level, would have an easier time winning over people on the right if we were better at making it clear that even if we have disagreements, even if we have problems, we can still find joy in things that and we can. You guys can. That's something you're all capable of. So make sure other people understand that too. Don't let them see you unhappy. Don't let them see you acting preachy. And don't be overly involved. Just be the calm in the storm and let it justify itself to you. Nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but in many cases, nobody has convinced a friend or family member to move away from these positions through exaggerated or deliberate upsettedness, of confronting them, of screaming, of crying, of being upset, of saying this little joke is actually a microaggression and you have hurt me in doing so. Because the more you overstate the case, the more upset you are, the easier it is for them to call you hysterical, overreacting. You understand? I know it's difficult to say, right? Like, well, you're confronting some serious social ills. You're trying to create a space where your friends and family aren't going to make you feel like shit for who you are, aren't going to, worsen your life. These are high stakes, and I understand why people can get emotional, but it is so, so, so important that you be calm when doing so. It's vital.